Alright, so this is what the K1 looks like. It's actually quite unique. It's not a huge printer, so it doesn't take up much space, but we do have a pretty large build volume. Yeah, let's start here from the top. So we have this cover with handles here. It is cut out in the back here to feed our PTFE tubing, and it just sits on there. We can pull it off. And also it is tinted just like everything else, which is a pretty nice look. So the whole printer is enclosed and we have a door up front. Again, everything is tinted. These panels here are see-through. And we do have some protection here. Let's go ahead and peel that off. It does look much nicer, kind of like a glass finish. Same thing on the other side. And actually, guys, right here, there is a sticker that looks like it is right on top of the plastic. Maybe it was just a mistake. The door on the front is quite satisfying. It does magnetize. And also there is like a rubber seal around here. And going down, we have our touch screen with the sticker here that reminds us to check our voltage on the power supply. So let's go ahead and peel that off. And from the screen this way, we have the USB port. And other than that, it's quite clean. So I got the printer flipped around and now we're looking at the back. We do have a nice honeycomb design. It is plastic. There's a fan here, our filament detector here. The connector is hot glued. And yeah, we're gonna install the spool holder here in the back. Clicks in and then you rotate it to lock it in, and our filament will go from here into the detector and then out of there into the hot end. Here we have the manufacturing label with the machine size and the weight, the 350 watt power supply, and below that we got the power input port. It is fused with an on and off switch. We can see we got 4 rubber feet on each corner, but they are quite low profile, and this is why they include these, as you can really make them quite larger. This could be useful as it'll minimize shaking the whole table. So if we go to the top, we can kind of see the chain here that carries our wire with the PTFE tubing to the hot end. Looks like we have some kind of latching mechanism here. Locks and unlocks the extruder, and we can kind of see the hot end there with the blower fans on the side. So yeah, we're going to look at it a little closer here from the other end, which if we flip around, we can kind of see here the front. Yeah, this looks like it's all built in and doesn't pop off. We do have dual rod rails for the X-axis, and then 1 rod on each side for the Y, and 3 rods with 3 lead screws for the Z. There's a pretty large blower fan here for the parts cooling, and it comes out the bottom here. We can see the tip. The heat block does have a silicone sock. Very large motors for the X and Y, which is in Core XY configuration. As you guys can see, all these belts. And we got pretty large pulleys too. Here on the back panel, we have this auxiliary fan that moves the air. But what's interesting is what's on the right side here. And there's a very large cooling fan that blows right underneath the nozzle. So this is additional cooling for fast printing. You can see the wires there going down, ZAxis motor. So our build volume is 220 by 220 by 250 tall, which is very reasonable, especially for this size printer, as the footprint is not very large and they definitely optimize the build volume, which I really like. So going back to the build plate, it is a removable flexible sheet that looks like you can print on both sides. We do have a protector on top. I like how they have the notches where it just lines up on those bolts in the back and it just snaps down. Very simple. And we got a nice large metal frame on the bottom, and we do have the heated bed, which is insulated underneath. Kind of hard to see. So there are a couple little bolts you can take out, and this pops off, and we can see a little closer here with the parts cooling fan and the duct here, how it's directed underneath. Very nice. Let's go ahead and unplug it. Yeah, actually not too much to see here. We just have the junction board with some logic here, and it does appear to be another board right behind that. All right, so I set the printer down on one of the sides, and I'm gonna go ahead and open up the bottom here so we can see. Mostly held by just these 4 rubber feet, and you guys can see how small they are. And this is why when you insert it in here, it makes a pretty big difference of how much foot you have. So there are a couple more bolts that you do have to take out to get the plate out, but it should come out. We got some venting here. Let's see what's under there. Quite interesting. All right, so this one's just a vent, and here we have a fan that looks like pulls air from the bottom and cools the main board. So let's start up here where the power supply is. So we got the power that comes in here from the side, and this is Creality branded, 350 watts, 24 volt, 14.6 amps. Looks like all of our connectors are nicely crimped and connected. Over there in the corner, we have our USB port. And if we go back here to the top, this is where you can adjust your voltage. It shows you right here. And I can't get my light just right, but maybe you guys can see it's on 230. So I need to switch it to 115, which is the other way. And so I'm just going to use this Allen wrench, and you can use like a little screwdriver or whatever else. And we're just going to switch it to the right side, which is 115 now. So depending on where you live, make sure you do that, as the printer is not going to operate correctly unless you're on the correct voltage. So looking back inside, we can see that here we have the ZAxis motor, and it has like a belt that goes to a large pulley, and that's going to be one of our lead screws, and then it goes and splits into two, and there's another one there and another one down there. And that's for the Z-axis, for the bed to go up and down. And you guys can see we have an outer tensioner that looks like is adjustable right here on the spring. Yeah, you can check your belt if you want to open up the bottom. And mine looks like it's perfectly tight. I forgot to mention that we are grounded to the case because it is metal on both sides here, which is really nice to see. And going down here to our main board, this is a Creality board with lots of logics and chips. We do have integrated steppers that are synced, but they are not removable. But yeah, lately that's how they all are. All the connectors are glued. Everything seems to be built very well under here. Another thing to mention is there's a little cable here that goes to nowhere. So this is maybe for a future accessory. Let's go ahead and peel this. Very nice. And I went ahead and put that sticker back over the voltage selector. And by the way, on the lid, it does tell you here when to use it and when to not. So when you're doing PLA, you don't need to use the lid. And when you start printing hotter temperatures like ABS or anything that requires an enclosure, you would use the lid.